Okay, so let's start. This is lecture 22 for incident response technology class. So we will continue last class, the slide. Remember last class slide is this Metasploit attack. So last time we have demonstrated doing the Metasploit attack to the Metasploitable Linux virtual machine, because that Linux VM is specifically prepared to be the target for the Metasploit attacking tools. And remember, I put this link. You should download this WinXP unpatched this VM image and import into your own VirtualBox. So this one I have prepared to make it vulnerable. You can also download the original Windows XP virtual machine image here. This is provided by Microsoft a few years ago, but I think maybe 4 years ago, they have removed it from Microsoft website. So you cannot download it from Microsoft anymore. I would recommend you to download this original one to keep for your own sake, like in the future, if you want to redo the test, or if you, in the future, if you want to teach others how to do this Metasploit penetration testing attack, then you have this original XP copy to do all the experiments. So download both virtual machine image. So and another thing is that the homework 4 is released and it is due next Sunday midnight. So you still have more than 10 days, maybe 11 days to finish the homework 4. Homework 4 is basically the things from this reconnaissance, scanning, and online password cracking, just these parts of content. Let's, I will briefly explain the homework 4. So you can see this, we have 4 questions. Question 1 is basically the reconnaissance. In reconnaissance, we introduced this command, who is command, which is to get the DNS domain name registration information for any public domain. So this question 1 asks you to use who is command to get the information. It should be simple. Question 2 is using Google hacking, basically Google search, and use this search operator keyword like file type, like site, those keywords, and to find specific information on the target website. So original question, I use CS, UCF EDU. The problem is that if you are doing this search in campus or outside of campus, it might give you different results because in campus. That's why this time I changed it to UFL. Their computer science and engineering department. So it's a Google hacking techniques to do search to find the result. One thing is the second question here, find the PDF file that contained in the PDF title. So remember this scanning is in a PDF title, it's not in the PDF file name. So file name is very short, but a PDF file title, like a paper's PDF title, the paper title is very long. So this scanning is in the title. In the Google hacking, Google search, there is a special operator to find text in the title part. Question 3 is basically test this fears. We introduced the fears that the most effective way to use fears is using this reverse DNS lookup to find within a subnet in the target network how many IP addresses have been assigned with a public domain name. Then if any IP address is assigned with a domain name, then it's very likely that that IP address is online because it's assigned with domain name. So it must, the company must set up that as a server, any kind of server. So this is a very effective way to get information on what IP address has installed with server on a target company network. So we introduced that fierce, and it's also in the reconnaissance. I think in the reconnaissance 2 slides. Reconnaissance, we have 2 slides. This is in reconnaissance 2 slides. Question 4 is interesting part because I gave you a binary file. This is a Windows executable program. So you cannot see any source file. The source file is just a C++ program. It's very simple program. The program do is just like what I introduced the example in the class. It asks you to input a password. If you input password wrong, it will give you the information wrong password. If you input the password correct, then it will say the password is correct. So that's the only function for this very small program. But it's a executable program, so you cannot see what's the actual password in the file. In the class, I introduced example. Basically, that is, I think, a forensic challenge example, the first password. So you need to use this OLE debugger software to find out what is actual password used in this program, and also use screenshot to demonstrate that this password you input actually can pass the check of this program. Remember, this is a Windows executable program, so you can only run it on the Windows machine. So if you are using Apple's computer, you can run it in the Windows virtual machine, like Windows 7, Windows 8, Windows 10 virtual machine that are running in your VirtualBox. So that's the 4 question. Yes. This is okay. Any question for the homework 4? Oh, I should mention one thing for homework 4 is that it happened before that some student only gave a screenshot and doesn't answer any text. For example, here I ask you to list the PDF file's title. So you should give the text answer. So basically in your report, you should say, here are the 5 PDF file, and here are the title for this 5 PDF file, and give the title in the text. Then you can use a screenshot to show the Google search page. So screenshot image is not the final answer. Screenshot image just to show that you actually did get the answer. So I want to emphasize that if I ask you the question to ask you to answer something, you need to first give the text answer. Then you show the screenshot at the same time. Don't just show a screenshot without saying any word. In addition, some student, even worse is that some student gave a screenshot of the entire computer screen. And the actual real part is just a very, very tiny part of the entire computer screen. So that's not acceptable. If you give that, you will get some point deduction. So make sure that, like here, please show the Google search phrase you have used to get answer. Then you should explicitly give the text of the Google search phrase you have used. Of course, the screenshot of the Google search result page will also show your search phrase in screenshot page, but you need to give the pure text answer first. So that's I want to emphasize that this one asks you to find out the password used here. You should give the text version of the password. Then show this screenshot. You tap the password and pass it. So that's the screenshot, but you should still give the text answer of the password you found. Okay, let's continue what we have left last time.
Dr. Zhu?
Yes.
Yeah, I just wanted to ask a quick question.
Okay.
And it's probably a stupid question, but how do we limit the size of the screenshot? I know if I move it to Word and shrink it down, it goes out of proportion.
Yeah, in Windows, I don't know what's the program in Mac computer, but in Windows, it's called a snippet. In Windows, you can use this snipping tool.
Okay.
Then basically this is snipping tool, and you click new. Suppose you only want to get. And
you can draw it.
You can draw a square. Then whatever you put in the square is a screenshot image.
Okay, great, thanks.
Yeah, no problem. So that's the simple way. You can then like a copy and paste to your Word document, or you can save the image and insert image into your into your document.
Great, thank you.
No problem. Yes.
There's actually an easier way in Windows. If you do the regular screenshot, which is a Control-Shift-S, you can then choose whether you want to select the whole window that you got on, or if you want to draw a box, it will automatically copy it to your clipboard and you just paste it straight into your document.
Oh, you mean Control Print Screen S?
Control Shift, actually. Control Shift S.
Control Shift S. Then to do what?
My experience, as soon as you snip it, it automatically saves it.
Oh, yeah, I've never done that, but usually I use snippet, and then I click this copy, then I can paste to a Word document. So you don't need to save as a separate image file that insert as a picture in the Word. You can just click this copy, then paste to the Word. Shift Windows S. Okay, Shift Windows S. Oh, then you can draw a shape to create a screenshot. Okay. So that's another way. Let me see. And then Control Paste. Yes. So the case Francis in the chat, he gave another solution. Basically, in Windows, you press down Shift, Windows, and S button. These three buttons together, and then you can draw any square to select the part, and it will automatically copy to the clipboard. Okay. So I usually use this snipping tool in the Windows to do that. But anyway, there are many other ways to do it. Okay, let's come back. And if you don't have any questions, then for homework 4, then we move on to this attack to the vulnerable Windows XP. You first, well, originally you can download Windows XP from Microsoft, but it's not available on that anymore. But I have a previous download version, but this version can use forever. Every time when you import, it will be valid for 30 days. Well, you can still use it after 30 days. It's just every time when you open it, after 30 days, it will give you a warning saying this is expired, this is not genuine Microsoft, and it will be a little bit slow. So, but there's no big deal. You can still use it even after 30 days expire. But when for Windows VM, basically once you import to VirtualBox any Windows VM, you should disable automatic updates. For example, for Windows 10 VM, when you import, you should definitely disable it. Otherwise, maybe one time it will begin automatic update and it will take forever for it to finish. One student asked question, do I need to download any other software rather than only debug software for homework 4? For homework 4, yes, there's only this software is need only debugger, because for question 3, this spheres is included in Kali Linux, so you don't need. Question 2, Google hacking, just use Google search. Question 1 is the whois command is also included in Kali Linux. So only need to download only debugger for homework 4. And but the Windows XP VM you download is fully patched. So all the existing known vulnerability has been fully patched. So it cannot be easily compromised. So how do I make it to be vulnerable? I use a very way. Basically, I removed all the security patches in the Windows XP, because this Windows XP VM is Service Pack 3 Windows XP VM. Even after Service Pack 3, it still has a lot of critical vulnerabilities. And after I remove all the this security patch, then it is vulnerable to many known attacks. And I use this, remove this security patch one by one. This is original Windows. This is original Windows XP. And if you go to Control Panel, go to Add Remove Program, you can see that here, these are all security patch for Windows XP. It has more than 60. It's a less than 70 security patch here. So you need to remove everyone, and there are ways to automatically remove them, but automatic way cannot remove them, cannot remove all of them, only remove like 90%. The remaining few one you still need to manually remove. And automatic script running will take a little bit more action. So I usually do not use that. I just simply select a security patch, then remove it, and just going through. If it require update, when you remove a security patch and require restart, just click do not restart and finish. So you just remove everyone. After removed all security patch, then you restart Windows XP to make it to take effect. Because there are more than 20 security patch require you to restart after you remove it. Then restart will take so many times. You really don't need that. So that's why in my slides, I mentioned that when you remove each one by one, ignore all the warning and choose do not restart now option if it requires that restart to take effect. It will take about 15 minutes to 20 minutes if you do it manually by yourself. So after that, this is original Windows XP, and this is Windows XP unpatched, basically the one that I have created and removed. So you can see this is the unpatched version of the Windows XP. All the security patch here has been removed. This is original Windows XP. You can see there are so many security patches here. Okay, so let me take off this original Windows XP. In addition, I have I not only disabled automatic update, I also disabled firewall, because if you don't disable firewall, maybe the ping cannot go through. Microsoft Windows, usually they don't respond to ping. So for simplicity, I disabled firewall. How do I create this vulnerable Windows XP? Basically, when you import it, I do all the security patch disable, then I use VirtualBox and file and export. Then you can export existing virtual machine in your VirtualBox to the VM image. Then you can import this VM image to another computer, which will give you exactly the same configured virtual machine. So that's the advantage for virtual machine. Basically, you can duplicate a specific copy to any computer without any problem. It's very easy to do. One thing is that, remember, this is vulnerable Windows XP. So there are many attacks to this vulnerable. So do not use it to browse the internet. Especially don't use the included IE browser to browse the internet. The IE browser in that is IE6, which has a lot of known vulnerability. And if you browse the internet, you could quickly be compromised by drive-by download. We will demonstrate several of the drive-by downloads in the class. I can install Google Chrome because Google Chrome for Windows XP, when Windows XP is removed from Microsoft, they also stopped providing security patch. So whatever you download Google Chrome that can run on Windows XP is already many years old, and they haven't updated them yet. So so using Google Chrome, if you download, it would still not be secure. So don't use this Windows XP to browse the internet. Okay, so I think this is more accurate. Basically, after 30 days, you can still use it, but you will get a lot of warning message, and maybe it will also slow. Critical vulnerability, well, you can use Nmap to scan this one. We use Nmap. So of course, before I use Nmap, I need to know what's the IP address. The screen is a little bit slow. If you think the screen is small, you can use this view virtual screen and make it a little bit bigger. Okay, IP config. So Windows XP's IP address is 2.6. If I use Nmap 10.0.2.6, you can see that it opened these several ports. This 3389 we introduced before, this is a remote desktop. Because Windows XP, I have enabled remote desktop. I think by default, it's also enabled. And the other MSRPC, NetBLOS, so these are network neighborhood and network of Windows file sharing, those service, these ports, they are open. Right now, this firewall has been disabled. If you enable the firewall, let me see. If you enable the firewall, you can see what has been blocked by the firewall. You do this Nmap scan again. Well, you can see that 135 is blocked. So 135, when you enable the firewall, this one has been blocked. And it also, this one, 2836 is closed. So it also will be blocked by the firewall, but firewall give you the response. So the Nmap know that this port is closed by the firewall. The other port basically give you no response. So you can see here a difference. Here is a closed port. Basically, whenever Windows receive a TCP connection request to a port that is not in use, the Microsoft Windows will give a response. Basically, close your TCP connection, reset your TCP connection. So Nmap know that this port is closed. So that's why it's showed closed. But here, this showed filter port, because when the firewall is enabled, when the Windows receives such TCP connection to a port like 100, port 100, the firewall basically don't give any response. The Windows should give the response, but firewall blocked all the response. So Nmap does not receive any response for this TCP SYN request. And the Nmap just show that this port is filtered. Filter just means either there is a firewall blocking that traffic, or the target machine does not respond at all to that port TCP connection. So that's what the filter means. And also it takes longer. This is 4 seconds. This is just a 1.30 second. Because if Windows gives the response for every TCP SYN connection, the Nmap know immediately what's the status for that port. On the other hand, for here, Nmap need to wait for the timeout for that TCP connection request to know that the port has been blocked. So that's why it takes a longer time to do this scan. And if I do this pin, let me see if will still be okay. I think for Windows XP, firewall does not block the pin, but from Windows 7, Windows 8, Windows 10, the default rule for the firewall is blocking all the pin traffic. You can also use Nessers to do vulnerability scan, to scan this Windows XP to find out whether it can find critical vulnerability or not. Okay, so let's start the actual attack. So the first, remember for Microsoft Windows critical vulnerability, Microsoft gave this security publishing. Once Microsoft generates a security patch for that critical vulnerability, it will also publish this vulnerability and also push out the security patch. So all the attacks, they will use the Microsoft security bulletin number. So this is Microsoft gave the number for that critical, for that specific vulnerability. MS08067. So this means it was published in 2008, and this is number 67 critical vulnerability published by Microsoft. So that's the naming rule by Microsoft. When you open Metasploit, let me start from beginning. MSF console. And I'll make it a little bit bigger. So search MS08067. And you can see that there is one attack module. This is for Windows SMB. And this is Microsoft Service Related Path Stack Corruption, MS0807. The rank is great, so you will still have very high chance to compromise the target if the target has this vulnerability. And so there's only one attack module, so you just use this attack module. And if you don't configure payload, then the default payload will be this one: Windows Metasploit reverse TCP. Metasploit is like a command shell. It's like in Unix we have Unix shell. Metasploit is a command shell that is supplied by the Metasploit tools. So this command shell, attacker usually use it because it supports more commands than Windows command. Because in Windows, if you run this terminal, you can use dir or like ns lookup, those kind of command to do anything. Only very limited Windows command supported by this Windows command window. But if you use Metasploit, you can type a lot of more command. The command is like any Linux command, any Windows command, they all support it. And also Metasploit provides several other commands that is attacker usually want to use. For example, enable camera, stop the camera, enable key loggers, stop the key logger, download the file or upload the file. So all these commands are supported by Metasploit. So this is the default payload, but if you want to show what payloads supported, you use show payloads. You can see that actually it supports a lot of payload. You can see it's going on forever. And some or many of those payloads, I don't know how to use them, but even for Metasploit, like this VNC, in fact, this payload is remote desktop. I will demonstrate that later. So you can set up either, once you compromise the Windows target, you can either have a command shell to be created like the Metasploit, or you can make it to have remote desktop control. Then you have the remote desktop window. You can using mouse and to operate on the remote compromised Windows machine. And for remote desktop, you can use reverse TCP. Means that the connection is from the target to the attacking machine. The normal connection is from target machine, from attack machine to the target machine. So this direction means how do you set up a TCP connection for that control channel to be set up. In addition, you can set up this shell by using like HTTP version or by using some encryption, because by default, reverse TCP is a plain text. All the command transmit is unencrypted, but you can encrypt this command shell. So there are many other ways. So this Windows payload, Windows reverse TCP is, just remember all these are ordered by the character. So if you want to find the reverse, Windows reverse, so you should say payload Windows OPQR. It's a Windows Metasploit, so I should find Metasploit. So this is a default payload used by the program if you don't specify which payload you want to use. This is the reverse TCP. You can see here is the reverse IP version 6 TCP. So you can use IP version 6 to set up this connection. So we just use this default reverse TCP meter for that. And then normally you should use the set payload, then copy that payload here. For example, let me make this. Normally, you should use set payload, then put the entire thing here. But if it's a default, if you don't want to change default, then you don't need to set payload. Then you should check what parameters you need to set. For options, so the first part of option is for this attack, for the attack module. Attack module, there are 3 required options. The port, attack port is 445. So remember, this is one of the open port for Windows XP. And so only one parameter is missing, basically our host. So we set remote host. IP address is the Windows XP's IP address. Let me see. Windows XP's IP address is 2.6. So we set IP address, and here is parameters for the payload. So localhost is by default is attacker's machine, basically the Kali Linux IP address. So it has already set up because Kali Linux IP address is my Kali Linux is this 2.4. So the default set for this local host is 2.4. So that's Kali Linux. And the local port, again, the default port is 4444. For any real attack, you can always need to change the default port. Otherwise, the default port is always monitored by security staff. So we can, for example, change the local port like to 5000 or 5001. Any port that is bigger than 1024, because for any operating system, the port below 1024 is reserved by the operating system. So you cannot use them freely. Set local port, then if you show options, you can see that we have set local port, we have set remote host. So why do we need the local host, the local port? Because remember, this payload is meter creator, is a shell. It's reverse TCP. Reverse TCP means this is a TCP setup connection for the shell. And this connection is initiated from the compromised machine to connect back to the Kali Linux. So Kali Linux need to listening on a specific port to accept this incoming TCP connection. So that's why you need to decide which port you want to listen in for this incoming TCP connection. So this is 5001. So once the target Windows XP is compromised, meter creator program will run on the target XP and connect back to the attacker's machine. So last step is exploit. You can see that meter creator section 1 open and local IP address, local port, remote IP address, remote port. So this is meter creator shell TCP connection. And you can see that you can run dir, basically Windows command. You can also run ls. So basically, meter creator support both the Windows command and the Linux command. So you can run any command in here. And in addition, it supports additional commands like this sysinfo. This sysinfo command does not exist in Windows or in Linux. It's just the unique command exists only in the meter creator shell. So sys information gives you the system information. So you can see that this is a Windows XP computer. they give you the system information. This is a Windows XP Service Pack 3 operating system. You can support Linux command. Linux command pwd means what's the current directory. So it shows that this is Windows directory. So it supports both Linux and Windows command. So in my screenshot, I show that use one attack module. You set a payload, so this slide just give you some information about this Metasploit payload. Metasploit payload is most popular payload used by attacker because it set up a command shell that attacker can run all kinds of commands. In addition, the command shell is a pure text traffic. So it generates very little traffic on the internet. It will not create alert to the administration on the target computer because the traffic is very small. It's pure text traffic. There are two popular shell payloads for most Windows exploit. One is the bind method. Another is the reversed method. For Metasploit, for the previous attack module, it actually supports Metasploit, both the bind TCP and reverse TCP. Bind TCP means that once you compromise the target, your attacking machine initiates TCP connection to the target IP address to set up the TCP connection, to set up this Metasploit shell. Reverse TCP means once you compromise target, the target machine initiates TCP connection to the attacker's machine. Usually, attacker uses reverse TCP mode. The reason is because in many cases, target computer is either installed with firewall or the target machine is using private IP address, for example, behind a NAT router, like in the home. Right now, in every home, if you're using broadband connection, you will most likely have a home Wi-Fi router. Then all your home computers, they are behind the Wi-Fi router. They have private IP address. Private IP address means that it cannot be connected from the internet side. So you cannot initiate connection from outside internet to connect to a computer inside a home network. But once a computer in your home is compromised, it can easily initiate TCP connection to an outside computer because all the home Wi-Fi router or the ISP or firewall, they do not block any incoming connection to outside. Even for UCF firewall has very strict rule, but you can set up TCP connection from UCF computer to arbitrary port to an arbitrary internet IP address. So that's why by default, attacker uses reverse TCP. It will remove the hassle that if the target computer has firewall, then bind TCP will not work. It will not be able to set up the TCP connection. So that's why most likely attacker will use this reverse TCP mode for this control access. When to use reverse shell? When the target machine is behind a private network, when the target machine's firewall is enabled and blocking incoming connections, especially most of firewall, they will block any incoming connection that is not recognized. So if you connecting to port like 4444, certainly the firewall will block that connection. Or if the payload is unable to bind to that port due to some other reason, or simply you cannot decide, then just choose the reverse TCP, reverse shell. And for the previous attack payload, this 08067 attacking module, it also supports other shell like UPXEC shell. This is a normal Windows shell command line shell. You can run any command that you can run in Windows command terminal. But certainly it's not as powerful as Metasploit, because in Metasploit shell, you can run all the Linux commands and also some other specific command for attack. Here is a tutorial to introduce the Metasploit. Yeah, here is a tutorial to introduce how you can use Metasploit, explain some popular command you can run in the Metasploit shell. For example, reboot computer, shut down the remote computer, take screenshot of the remote computer, so you know what the target user is using right now on the computer. You can even enable web camera. If the target computer has web camera, then you can enable web camera. And so these are the commands. For example, take screenshot. Right now, my shell is still here, and you can type help to see all the commands supported by. Is like a specific command, unique command supported by Metasploit. For example, you can record the mic if you can enable the microphone to record audio. Screenshot is this one. Screenshot. Grab a screenshot of the interactive desktop. So we can type this command, screenshot. Then it tells you that we have taken a screenshot and saved to this root directory as a JPEG. So we can open this file folder, and right now it's in root. You can see this. This is the JPEG. Oh, the Windows right now is in sleep mode, so that's. So right now, this is the Windows screen. If I take another screenshot, is NW. This one. You can see that this is actually the screenshot of the Windows XP machine. So you can take a lot of screenshots to see what the target user is doing on the target computer. So here are all the unique commands supported by the Metasploit. These commands, they are usually, they don't exist in Linux terminal or Windows terminal, but they are supported here. It showed all the command, like ls is a Linux command, dir is Windows command. They are the same under the Metasploit. So when you use a reverse shell, these two parameters you must set. Remember, in the show options, you need to set these two options. Localhost, this is IP address you want your target machine to connect back. So for advanced attack, attacker usually don't define localhost as the attacking machine, because if a security administrator see that this is compromised, they can see what outgoing connection go, then they will be able to find attacker's computer. So you can define localhost to be a third computer. Then on the third computer, you can listening. You can opening the listening on this specific port to accept this Metasploit shell connection to the third computer. In this way, even if security staff find out that computer has been compromised, they don't know where this attack comes from, because the Metasploit shell is connecting to a third computer. So basically, attacker has the flexibility to define. Of course, if you set up on the third computer, you need to do to set up the service on the third computer first. So the most easier way for attacker is simply change the L port, still using the Kali Linux as the local host, but you change the local port to make it not standard. The default port will always be monitored by any security software. So I show options, find local host, local port, fill in missing options. Then you do the exploit, then it's the Metasploit. Under Metasploit, you can type help to see all the commands. And here's a tutorial on the Metasploit. And here are some commands supported by the Metasploit. Sysinfo show the system information. And download, upload, you can upload, download file. So Metasploit at this time, it behaves like FTP service. So you can upload, download file. You can key scan start. So start capturing keystroke on the target computer. You can key scan stop capturing keystroke. Then it was all the captured keystroke was saved in a file and on the attacker's machine. So you can see whatever keystroke typed by the victim user. The screenshot I have demonstrated that a moment ago. So screenshots take a picture. A webcam, you can take specific from the web camera, take a snapshot from the web camera. Hash dump, we will explain this one later. Hash dump, it basically dump the content of the password file in Windows. Windows password file is in this so-called SAM database format. So hash dump command will dump this password file. Then attacker can do offline password cracking to find out what's the password for all the user account on that specific Windows computer. Okay, so we demonstrate the Metasploit shell. That's the most popular payload attacker use because it's stealthy. It doesn't generate that much traffic. There are many other payloads. Another payload I want to demonstrate is this remote desktop payload. Remote desktop payload is basically a VNC inject. Again, it has both directions, reverse TCP and bind TCP. So if you don't know which one you want to use, then just use reverse TCP for the payload. So let me demonstrate that. So you can type exit to exit this Metasploit shell. And right now we are still using this attack module, so we don't need to use another attack module anymore. We just need to change the payload. So show payloads. This one, payload Windows VNC inject reverse TCP is what we want to use. Set payload. Then the payload has been set. Then we need to check what parameter we need to set. And remote desktop payload require you to set more parameters. You can see that here is parameters for the VNC inject. VNC is basically the remote desktop program running on Linux. So it's called VNC. It has already set some parameters. We set this local host before, so it is here. If you run it from start, then there is a local host is empty, so you need to fill in the local host IP address. Local port, you can also change the local port. So let's set local port, for example, 6666. It has some additional parameters specifically for the remote desktop. The VNC host VNC host, it already set its local host. Remember, 127.0.0.1 means your own IP address. So it just means this VNC server is set up on the Kali Linux machine itself. Remember, this VNC inject reverse TCP. It means that once the Windows XP is compromised, it will connect back to the VNC server running on the Kali Linux. So these parameters just show where do you want to run the VNC server, remote desktop server. So by default, it will be run on the Kali Linux machine itself. So it's the local computer. The VNC port, basically the VNC server, which port you want to receive the remote desktop connection. The default is 5900. You should always change the default. Of course, if you don't worry about being detected, you don't need to change the default. But suppose we change the default like 6669. Another parameter, this one is important. This view only means whether you want to run this remote desktop in the view only mode or not. View only mode just means once the remote desktop is set up, you can see the there's a compromised Windows computer screen. If the user is using that computer, you can see whatever the user's action, but you cannot control the compromised Windows machine because this remote desktop is only view only. So by default, this view only is set as true, so you cannot control the compromised machine. If you want to control it, you should set this as false. Set view only as false. If this is the case, then that means you can not only see this Windows XP's screen and user action, you can also type in, use your own keyboard and mouse to actually change whatever on the target machine. So it's like you are doing a remote desktop connection to the Windows XP. The only problem is that if you do any action, if there is actual user on the Windows XP, they will immediately know that their computer is under control by someone else because they are not moving the mouse. So by default, it's a view only option. So you can use show option to check to verify all these has been set. This attack module, this port you cannot change because that's the attack opening port. Yes. View only just means you don't control the compromised machine. So you can actually see the live screen of the compromised Windows XP. And you can take computer control print screen by yourself, right? To take whatever many screenshots you want. And view only can see all the real-time dynamics. So it will get more information than the screenshot command in meter creator. However, attacker usually don't use remote desktop because once you set up remote desktop, it's constant traffic. Remote desktop, remember, any movement, any mouse, any change of the target machine's display, it will also show up on the attacker's machine. So it's a constant data streaming between attacker's machine and the compromised machine. So it can be easily detected by security staff. So we have set up everything. The other parameter I don't change because I'm not sure what they used, but now we can do the exploit. Let's see this Windows XP. So remember, this is Windows XP. And let's come to this. So this is, you can see here, this VNC VNC server session 2 opened, and the port is 6666-1068. So that's the 666 is the port I defined. The 6669 is for this TCP. Remember, I defined the VNC port is 6669. 6666 is for this reverse TCP connection. So this connection is from remote computer to my computer on this port. This is for VNC server port. And this tight VNC is basically this remote desktop program running on Linux. This is a tiny remote desktop program. And you can see here, because I gave the false configuration for view only, so I can actually control the mouse on the Windows computer. Like if I click this, my document, and if you go back to see the Windows XP, you can see this, my document is here. So let me. Okay, so I make them side by side so you can see the difference. So this is a Windows XP machine. And this is a remote desktop tiny VNC. You can see whatever my options here will also show up in this Windows XP machine. So that's because I defined view only as false. So I can actually control the remote desktop on a target machine. And of course, if there is actual user on the target machine, they can immediately see that someone is controlling my computer. Like you can see all this screen. So this is a VNC inject payload. So you can close it. Now we have closed the VNC connection. VNC connection closed. Okay, so that's the second payload I want to demonstrate. So most popular payload is meter operator, the command shell meter operator, and using reverse TCP mode. And of course, you can set up remote desktop, which is very easy for attacker to use. But on the other hand, it is very easy for defender security staff to know that their computer has been compromised because of this constant traffic between attacking machine and the victim machine. So Kali Linux has already installed this VNC viewer program. Here is just some screenshot. The default port is 4444, and the default R host is empty here. Default view only, the parameter is true. Okay, so that is this MS08067. We use this because this ranking is very good, so almost excellent. So every time when you do the attack, you will be sure that you can compromise target. There are some other attack. This one may not be successful. I can try it, MS09001. It's the first attack module, first vulnerability discovered in 2009. This rank is normal. So normal just means sometimes you can be successful, sometimes you cannot. Use. we just use reverse TCP. That's the most simple one. The payload is not valid. It is this one. Why this is not valid? Okay, I'm not sure why it show up as the payload valid. Let me use another one.
So why you do that? Is the Windows XP virtual machine a 32-bit or 64-bit?
It's a 32-bit Windows XP machine.
Okay, thank you.
I'm not sure why for this attack module, it showed all the payload here, but whenever I use set the payload, it always says the value specific for the payload is not valid. But it's okay. Well, I cannot demonstrate this one, but anyway, in my previous class demonstration, this one does not work as well. And well, I don't know whether this YouTube video exists. Oh, okay. This YouTube video just some attackers to demonstrate how use this attack to compromise Windows XP machine. Okay, let's move on to another vulnerability. This vulnerability is about IE browser. So it's called drive-by download vulnerability. Basically, it tries to compromise the IE browser, but IE browser is not a server. Like previous attack is attack this network neighborhood server. So you directly connect to the target computer, you compromise target computer by sending traffic to that port 445. But this vulnerability is IE browser. So you cannot send attack to the XP machine. Instead, you set up a malicious web server, then try to send the phishing email to the attacking machine. If the victim click the link and using IE browser to connect back to the malicious web server, the IE browser will be compromised. So that is called drive-by download. Basically, drive-by download is specifically try to compromise the vulnerable browsers when the victim using the browser to connect to the malicious web server. This is MS-10-018, so it was discovered in 2010. By the way, if you want to know what are these vulnerabilities, you can Google search MS-10-018, then you can find Microsoft security bulletin page to show the detail about this vulnerability. So this one, the rank is good. It's not very good, but it's still good. You have good chance to be successful. So let's try one of them. It has 2 attack modules, so you can try any one of them. So it has 2 attack modules. My screenshot, I tried this tabular activity X. So let's, my screenshot showed for the second attack module. So let me try the first attack module. Use. And it showed the no plot configured defaulting is the meter create a reverse TCP. So then you don't need to set payload anymore if you use the default one. So we just use the default one. Show options. So options as attack module options and this payload option. So the L port is a 4444. This attack module option, it has several options. Because this attack is a drive by download. Drive by download means that Metasploit will create a malicious web server. So this parameter is defined. How do you want to create this malicious web server? It shows that this SRV host basically is a malicious web server. What's the IP address for the malicious web server? So we need to set SRV host to be the Kali Linux IP address. What's the Kali Linux IP address? Kali Linux for my Kali Linux is 2.4. So is this? And SRV port, basically, which port do you want to set up the web server? The default port is 8080 because it doesn't set the default port to be 80 because maybe your computer already running a web server. So you want to not mess up with your existing web server. So it set this default. But my Kali Linux does not have any web server running. So I can set this SRV port to be the normal port. Because normal port will look normal connection. It will not raise alarm to victim. Before victim click any link on their phishing email, if this link has a specific port number, then they may be confused. Why, when you connect to a website, you need to set up a port number there. URI used, the default is random, so I can explain that later. Set URI port, for example, CIS6395. Shoot, I don't have time to finish, but this we have set up. Then you can run exploit. This exploit is different. This exploit basically is set up a server. It doesn't send any attack traffic out. It just set up this malicious web server on this specific, on the Kali Linux computer as RV host, on this specific port. But it also tells you which URL link you should ask the victim. You should trick the victim to connect to. This is a URL link you should trick the victim to connect to. So you can see that this is a port. Default is 880. Right now it's 80. So actually you don't need to put comma 80 here because by default, HTTP connection is to the 80. And you can see the URL path. Why I put URL path? CIS6395 is what I put in here. If you don't find this URL path, then this will be some random character string, random character there. So it will also raise additional alarm to any victim. So this is URL, and you need to ask or trick the victim. you need to trick the victim to connect to this computer 2.4. Originally, you should put a /80 here, but 80 is the default port, so I don't need to put that. CIS6395. So you need to trick the victim to connect to this URL. You put this URL basically in a phishing email sent to a large number of victims, and hoping that some of those victims will click the link and connect back to your malicious web server. You can see once I connect, and in the Windows XP, the IE browser suddenly disappeared. Maybe the user was saying that, well, the IE just crashed. So that's normal. But on the Kali Linux, you can see that it received the connection. It received the connection from this 10.0.2.6. And it said the successfully migrate and the Metasploit session 3 is opened. So actually the Metasploit is opened. And if you try to show session -I 3. Basically, remember the malicious website, you can receive many connections. So you may have multiple users set up Metasploit connection to multiple victim computer. Each Metasploit session has a unique ID. So you can use show sessions to show which existing session has been created. Then you use the sessions -I, the ID number, to use that session. So you can use show sessions, and you can see this one session ID sessions -I3, and you can actually use this Metasploit session. You can see this, we are actually compromising this Windows XP machine. So if the malicious, right now the malicious web server is still running. So if another Windows XP connected to this malicious web server, it could also be compromised. It will be Metasploit session 4, Metasploit session 5. So you can see all the Metasploit session you have created to multiple compromised client users. Okay, that's all for today's class. I have go over time, and I will finish this slide in next Monday class. Okay, see you next time.
See you next week. Thank you.
Yes, thank you. Bye bye.
All right.